Dan Leach back here in the windy city of Chicago at Benzinga's Cannabis Capital Conference. My true pleasure and honor to welcome in Jason Nelson, the CEO of Avail Ag. Great to see you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
What a time to be alive, right?
And time in Chicago. Beautiful weather. You know, we snuck it in before October. Sometimes it can kind of change the climate a bit. So, credit to Benzinga. You know, you guys doing a great show as always.
Well, we appreciate you being here. And listen, there's a lot of great things going on at Avail Ag right now. And I want to start with this. You really are helping a lot of people. So tell people how you do that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And honestly, a time in the industry, I think we all agree we just need to continue to work together, pool resources, because there's still a lot of challenges out there. But hey, listen, I've been fortunate. It's been 13 years of commercial cannabis for me. Started in Denver when it was going adult use, then Chicago for 6 years, St. Louis with a vertically integrated operator there, and really taken all of that, certainly expertise, the ability to build on successes, and notably to learn from mistakes. Along the way, joining Avail Ag now for 6 months, we've got a great tandem. So the Avail platform, one, we have traditional capital sourcing, lending sources that are unique and novel. We certainly understand the bigger players in the space, but we're a bit on the boutique side. We do have some fresh lenders, family offices that do want to get into the space. They have interest, but against that, it's still a constrained environment, obviously. I think we all experience that. And so the value that I can bring to that prospect on the Avail Ag side is all of that experience to, one, help tell the story, a true story obviously, to the lenders of how we can leverage the capital we're going to deploy, how we can avoid pitfalls, as we've seen any of these traditional markets, now adult use markets, there's certainly contraction, there's challenging times no matter how well someone's positioned. And so really, the ability to leverage both the access to fresh lenders and then that expertise to say, well, hey, listen, you need a sustainable business model, and I want to leverage your passion as much as anybody, but we've got to get you financially viable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's such an important message, too, because I think that, and obviously I've continued to learn so much about this industry, and you kind of alluded to it, where there's such a camaraderie and such a connection where, everyone individually wants to have success, but people are helping each other. What do you believe is the biggest misconception for people watching this right now that maybe want to get involved in the industry, that are scared to but don't understand that there are so many good things happening? What is that biggest misconception?
I think it is of even just omission of the high tax rates and high cost of capital as a non-normalized business environment, right? So everybody understands the popularity of cannabis, understanding the change in adult use markets, when you have all of these new clientele that maybe weren't willing to get a medical card, right, for example. Even in that climate, you definitely have cash flow positive operators. You have operators breaking neutral, and unfortunately, you still see a lot of operators who are stuck in a burn environment. They have to burn through capital. And so contextualizing that relationship, I think, is certainly not only beneficial for the investor climate, but even employees working at these facilities, at these sites, right? That they understand they are committing their time and resources to a volatile space, that there are still challenges that we face in state-by-state markets. But I would say lastly that I always approach this, and you certainly, unfortunately, still see operators in any climate either lending an asset, predatory asset relationships of, folks looking for the fire sale, be able to make a quick buck, people losing jobs, right, and likewise operators who still take this lens of scorched earth, that it gets so myopic that everybody knows this is a small fraternity. In 6 months, you're going to have a tough conversation with someone that you may have disenfranchised unnecessarily. It's a tough climate. Tough decisions have to get made. But I think if you take it with that general sense of like, listen, we're cooperating, we're competition, even that lens towards regulators, we all have to work together for this to work.
Yeah, you look at the other aspect too, where obviously that holy grail is at some point legalization. When you look, a year forward, 2 years forward, and I'm not going to make you make a prediction, even though I'm a big prediction guy, right, where do you see things going? Are you in a hopeful state right now? Because it seems like a lot of people are.
Well, and you have to maintain that optimism, but it was a similar climate a year ago, a year
right
before that, and you're right, a lot of us as executives have learned the lesson. You don't predict SAFER's going to happen. You don't predict rescheduling with a time frame, right? Even the general blanket of 2025, I think there's optimism there. And I think our best case right now is I'm fortunate I can spend some bandwidth and time understanding of what those pathways look like, certainly rescheduling, but the commerce lawsuit as well. That those things will have consequential impact if and when they do happen, and then to bridge the gap along the way, really continue to manage that of like, listen, you've got to be a very frugal environment, you've got to deploy cash in a very targeted way, war chest as much as possible. Unfortunately, we do generally recommend, even from the tax treatment perspective, like you could consider taking back some of your 280E going forward, but all of those amended tax returns that were flooded to the IRS, that's going to be a tough one for them
Sure
to unwrap. So it is, amongst all of that ambivalence and challenge, we stay optimistic, we focus on what we can control, and outside of that, you try to prepare yourself for surprises along the way.
Beautifully said, my friend. And when you look at Avail Ag in 2025, 2026, what's the focus for you the next couple of years?
It is, we're fortunate that we've got clients in over 10 states right now, so we do, we're not afraid of the West Coast markets. I know a lot of lenders are, obviously, and hey, I, as part of my MSO tenure, did play in California, for example. Clients up in Washington, even through the Midwest, in some place like Oklahoma, there are operators having success. Now, granted, it might be the minority. It's a large percentage that might still be struggling, and then certainly a ton of excitement about the East Coast markets. You really feel like New York finally getting some brick and mortar to offset some of the illicit market pressure that's out there, the bodega pressure, so to speak. Pennsylvania adult use, Florida adult use. My home state of Missouri, we got adult use across the finish line with 52%, and then Florida at 60%. I wouldn't count that chicken as hatched yet, unfortunately. So even for those operators, and let alone the weather, obviously it's been great to hear everybody convey their thoughts and concerns for folks down there as they weather the storm, not only from a hurricane, but the political season as well.
Right.
So that'll be obviously consequential. And it's true, I feel like those of us who've been 10, 12, 13 years in the commercial industry, it's a modicum of progress, but you still got to prepare yourself for a bit of a slog. It could well take into the next presidential term, whoever happens to win the election, for tangible progress.
Yeah, it's like respect for the past, but a leg and a hope towards the future at the same time.
And we do see a growth trajectory for Avail Ag, and it's obviously a crowded space on the services consulting side. I think for us, it is nice having that tandem of fresh lenders who do really see the value in the space, then having the expertise on the financial side to put all of their, every pro forma, put it all in a nice bow, have it prepared for those lenders. They trust us as a conduit for that. And then, as we mentioned earlier, being able to help an operator say, listen, I appreciate you may have a passion for topicals, for example, but when you're talking less than 2 to 3% of market share for a THC-laden topical, I can't have you burn capital on that SKU solely. We need to diversify you a little bit. Let's get you a legacy form factor so that you can make sure you're generating cash flow and successful brands along the way. And that's exciting. So we're looking to add another 15, 20% clients over 2025. And similar to the industry side, it's a modicum and a focused growth trajectory. We can't blow up the business unit as
Right.
I've seen, unfortunately. You don't want to go through those contraction periods that operators have had to, unfortunately. So it's cautiously optimistic, as we said.
Well, talking to you, Jason, has got me pretty fired up. Jason Nelson, the CEO of Avail Ag. Fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for joining me.
It's always my pleasure to share. Yeah, keep up the good work.
The pleasure and honor is all mine.